Welcome to Canada's podcast.
Hi, everybody. I'm Phil Bliss, founder and CEO of Canada's podcast, coming to you today from Toronto. With over 20 years of insurance industry experience, Andrew Clark is president and CEO of Aligned Insurance, a growing brokerage that is aligned with the interests and needs of Canadian business. Andrew founded Aligned Insurance in 2014 with a vision to create a different kind of brokerage, one that is driven by innovation, education, and customer service. Through a unique approach and a dedicated team of professionals, he's built a highly successful venture. Andrew's been named one of Canada's top 10 under 40, top 30 elite insurance brokers, and a company to watch. Andrew is also a passionate skier and Alpine Canada coach, which we shall discuss during our session. Great to see you. Welcome to Canada's podcast. We're going to have an interesting conversation. But before we get much further, why don't you tell a little bit about who Andrew Clark is and why you're here, kind of thing.
Yeah, fair enough. And thanks so much for having me, Phil. It's a real pleasure and honor. So I grew up in small town Ontario, and I was actually going to the University of Guelph at the time, and just studying political science and criminal justice. Was pretty dead set on becoming a cop or a lawyer. It was kind of my two choices.
And of course, you played rugby with my son at Guelph
I
as
played
well.
rugby with your son, yes. And very quickly realized I wasn't smart enough to be a lawyer, and that might have been partly due to rugby as well. No, I really kind of set my sights on becoming a police officer, and was going through my degree and working hard towards that in all areas, volunteering and all sorts of things. And one day I was going to the beach in Grand Bend with my beautiful wife, girlfriend at the time, and we rear-ended a car at just one of those fluke situations, and it got pushed into oncoming traffic and created this horrific series of events. There was 4 cars ultimately involved, broken legs and arms, and substantial injuries. And that event changed the course of my life. I was months later, car repaired, and didn't had to attend court and a few things, but for the criminal or the ticket side of things, but was sitting there having lunch, and I got a knock on the door and was given an envelope, and they said, "You've been served." And I had no idea what this meant. I was 21 years old and opened the document up, and I was sued for $2.2 million for the accident I was involved with months ago. Really, at that point, it became, all the emotions, all the, feelings that go along with that shock, and instantly called my, insurance brokerage and got the claim filed and made them aware of it. And, I was left with this feeling and experience of being helped with by the insurance industry that just really opened my eyes to a lot of different aspects of it. And from there, I set my sights on becoming part of it. I thought, why wouldn't I want to be a part of an industry that's there to help people when bad things happen? And ultimately, that was a big kind of turning point in my life, and became the reason why I pursued a career in insurance. And the rest is kind of history.
Okay. But, the insurance business, the fintech business in general, there's been such a revolution over the last, 6 years, especially, maybe 10 years, that it's radically changed that business. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the change is largely consumer driven and technology driven, for a desire for something better. It's increasingly become easier to get options. Companies in the insurance industry are actively and aggressively marketing and spending, millions and millions and millions of dollars for the opportunity to try to get you something better. And thanks to technology and consistency, particularly in personal lines, that side of things is has really helped the consumer, and it's fueled consumer behavior where stories of 20% savings or looking for low cost options or lowering costs is really important to people, and it should be. And the industry's done a good job facilitating that and providing that those opportunities and making the whole process and experience easy. But the reality is, that insurance is still it's built on good, utmost good faith and an intangible product, and it's ultimately just a contract that people are entering into. So it's not like buying, a can of juice from the grocery store or your bananas or an apple. It is complex as well. So it's got these, there's a desire and kind of a rush towards commoditization of the process and experience. But at the same time, there's a lot of complexity and advice and advisory that's really needed in the industry to make sure that things are done properly and well, to ultimately protect the consumer. So yeah, it's definitely been an interesting few years in that regard, and it's only just ramping up, and kind of the pace and the speed at which things are changing, it continues to increase.
So you've been building Aligned for a decade, I gather, and that decade, especially that decade, there's been so many changes in, not just the COVID thing, just the way business has been getting done. Tell us a bit about that journey and some of the shifts, if you like, that have happened, that you've been able to respond to and move around and keep growing, kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I think it's important to acknowledge the differences and the change that has occurred, because it's very real. So I grew up working. My career growing up was working with the large global brokerages, where literally, Phil, we would walk to the filing cabinet to try to find the policy folder that's for every single client. We'd pull that folder out of the filing cabinet, hoping that the other people that touched the file had printed off the documentation and correspondence, that the policy was in the right spot, that the invoice was included. And this literally was 11 years ago, where organizations, global organizations, managing billions of dollars in premium, and very sophisticated, great organizations, as well as the small, we're all operating on paper files. And yes, we had computers, and yes, we had relied on email, but the back end of how things got done and how we transferred and communicated data internally was still very manual. And that, I guess, in contrast to kind of fast forward, 10 years later, and having that historic experience, from day one, we digitized all policy documentation. We took advantage of the tools and created a geographic, non-specific, and geographic a business model that wasn't dependent on a physical location. And that was that was 10 years ago when we launched the brokerage. So when when COVID happened, as an example, and people weren't able to, or weren't going to the physical location anymore, that caused a lot of disruption for a lot of organizations that were still pretty old school and pretty manual. So we felt a bit, quite fortunate that all of our workflows, all of our digitization, all of our adoption of technology, being a small organization, actually really helped us. We feel pretty good about that, and we continue to invest heavily in technology to give good experiences to our clients, is ultimately what we're focused on.
Stay ahead of the game with our expert tips and strategies that will help your business thrive in a digital era. CanadasPodcast.com. Subscribe now.
You worked in the insurance business for quite some time before you started off Aligned. What's best about being the entrepreneur leader? What have you found that's best versus that employee role that you were in before?
Yeah, I think about that a lot, because it's easy to answer the question of what was great about having a great corporate career and a great corporate job, because there's a lot of perks associated with that: the stability, the comfort, the certainty. Always other people to to rely on and work with. And on the entrepreneurial side, none of that exists. But what does exist and what's fueled me personally, ultimately, is just the ability to control what I do, what I focus on, and how we do it. As an example, I deeply value time in the mornings with my daughter. So I choose not to book meetings before 10 o'clock in the morning because I can. And that, Phil, candidly, is probably the one thing that's been the most, not having to feel obligated or expected to show up, downtown Toronto for obligation that really probably don't need to be there for, getting the value out of it, and probably not the best return on my time spent, but by golly, corporately, you got to be there, you got to show up. So not having to go to those types of, kind of events or meetings or obligations, not having that pressure or the expectations of that sort of thing, and really just choose to schedule my life in a way that facilitates, how I want to live, and how I want to, be as a dad, and how I want to be as a husband, and a family member, is probably the one thing that has been so stark, and I've deeply appreciated.
So, what are you most excited about in the business today?
Yeah, I think it's the potential. 10 years in, I feel like we're just getting started. It really takes a long time to build the foundation of a business. And it takes a lot longer than I think that people fully ever appreciate. And there really, in the professional services and insurance business specifically, there isn't overnight success stories. There's no ability to scale and kind of create these, quick unicorn-like businesses. It's just not possible for regulatory reasons, for technological hindrances, for reliance on partners, your insurance companies, et cetera, et cetera. But I've been building for the last 10 years the foundation of what I believe to be something that's on the cusp. We're with our business model, with our branding, with our marketing, with our investment in Salesforce, and a fantastic customer experience that's supported by technology, but managed by real people and real business insurance professionals. It feels like we kind of have the tiger by the tail, and technology has really leveled the playing field in a lot of ways for smaller organizations to compete with larger organizations, because it gives us the ability to create unique experiences that are eventually, and with 10 years in, it could resemble some scalability. There's more clarity on, if I invest in this type of product or industry or lead, that the return will be very closely aligned with what was expected. And ultimately, that's what excites me. We're almost there, and it's taken a long time, but we're getting closer.
Well, let's cover that a little bit more, of the challenges of the last decade. What's the greatest challenge you've faced in the business to date?
Oh, I think it's changed over time. Originally, I started the business from scratch, and walking into a prospect meeting, knowing that I had 0 clients, actual clients, when I started, and was personally selling, and had all the regulatory side done, had the website, had all the licensing, everything was done, but that feeling of not having a critical mass to rely upon was the hardest part. It's easy to speak to the billions of dollars you place in the insurance marketplace. It's easy to talk about your, hundreds of thousands of clients. It's not easy to convince someone that you can do it better and differently. and not have that proven yet. So that was, in the early days, that was the biggest challenge. I think in the early, after the kind of initial years, one of the biggest challenges I experienced was, and I think this might resonate with some other entrepreneurs, is that there's this kind of strange collaboration or a feel of, in the first kind of 1 to 5 years, I would say people want to collaborate. They want to partner. They want to come along beside you and see what you're doing, understand it, maybe help you, maybe not, maybe try to everyone's trying to figure it out together. And I think a lot of time and energy is wasted in those early years, and you can get sucked into some pretty significant rabbit holes, thinking that this partnership or this person's going to be the savior, or this is going to drive sales if I can only, buddy up with this guy or bring in this person. That navigating that has been that was the kind of biggest 1 to 5 year challenge, and just sticking with what drives the actual business and ensuring that, we were selling insurance and, growing the business, which is what we ultimately do, instead of being distracted by partnerships or collaborations or, that sort of thing. I think that was something that was pretty.
So speaking about challenges, when you're faced with these challenges, which you run into,
Yeah.
have you kind of uncovered a way to handle them?
Yeah.
So you hit things, you apply. Is there a process there that's made it easier to overcome them, if you like?
Yeah, just having a critical mass and having a good base allows that freedom to say no quickly, and that would be the framework or the tool that I've used to not get distracted, or to not even contemplate spending time and energy on the next referral program or the next affiliate marketing scheme or whatever that is. It's just a flat no, and a quick no would be that piece, because that's not core to what we do. Our job is to be the distribution, be the advisors, be the person that is the marketer and generating the opportunities, and transacting those. So yeah, that piece, having the client base, and then just saying, having the stability and comfort to say no and not to get distracted with those sort of things, has been important for the 5 to 10 year range, which we're kind of currently in.
That's really good, actually.
Yeah.
And on the lesson side, if you could go back in time, what advice would you give yourself, when you were, say, 25?
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. I think, well, I had to go back to 25, I think I did a lot of things right, in the sense of learn an industry. If I'd, learn an industry, get your education and your professional designations and accreditations done early. Did my MBA part-time while working. So I was developing soft skills in the workplace, plus complementing that with more formal academic education to fill in some of the gaps in my resume. Candidly, I did political science as an undergrad, and didn't know a lot about business, but was in a career that obviously demanded that. So I tried to kind of shore that up with my MBA. And yeah, I think that those kind of things, get that stuff done early, and just realize that you never have, at 25, you never have more time than you have at that point. And that's been true every year of my life. Is the year prior, I had more time, I had more energy, I had more ability to change things and to get things done. And obviously, as your life progresses, you have family, you have kids, you have more employees, more responsibilities. You lose some of that, and those are important years to kind of invest in yourself and build that solid foundation for the future.
So, what's the best piece of advice that you've ever received? I think we've all had mentors, be it parents, be it people you meet in the workplace or at school or whatever. What's the best? I mean, but they're generally is a kind of gem or one or two things that, you kind of keep in your hip pocket and you bring out when you need it, kind of stuff?
Yeah. I'd say two things. The first was a real candid feedback from a client once that just they simply said, you and your team are not as good as you think you are. That was
Mhm.
good mentoring. That was good advice, and as a leader and a builder and an entrepreneur, you have to have belief. You have to think that you're doing things well, and think that you have something better and different to offer. And that stuck with me. It happened kind of early on in my career, and building Aligned and as an entrepreneur, and I took that to heart and really spent that time and energy to invest back into the business to try to make sure that no one could say that again. The second thing for me was just the cadence and pace of things. It's just it's not going to happen as a couple of mature business leaders have told me that it's not going to happen as quickly as you like or as fast as you think. So be patient, and that was absolutely true, and remains true today. And I think is a big part of being successful in building a business is understanding the cadence and the pace that's needed at certain seasons and times. And that's something that's really stuck with me. And I really anchor a lot of my management decision making and strategy around that concept.
Discover the latest trends, strategies, and success stories in the ever-evolving world of business. CanadasPodcast.com. Subscribe now.
What advice would you give, maybe someone listening, watching this, an entrepreneur that's, thinking about entrepreneurship, wants to start a business? What advice would you give them, if there's two or three things that don't forget these?
Yeah. Don't forget that it's not as rewarding as you think it will be in day one. There's going to be lots of times where it's, you're going to doubt yourself, and you're going to doubt that it's going to pay off or it's going to be worth it one day. And, that may be true for some people, and it may be true for some businesses, and recognizing that, this maybe isn't the best path for them. But for those people that, are true entrepreneurs and really are, have a great business plan, strategy, idea, whatever it is, it's also just natural that that's going to happen. You're going to feel that way some days. And fighting through that is what really sets you apart and helps you kind of, achieve those next levels or achieve that next milestone, and just never give up.
Okay. Let's get a little bit lighter. That's some great stuff, actually. Really, really good, Andrew. So, if you weren't doing what you're doing now, what would you be doing instead?
Oh, easy. I am a part-time ski instructor.
I was going to bring that up.
Yeah.
I was looking at your background.
Yeah, so I would be continentally shifting my where I lived and where I worked to follow the ski season. I would love to spend summers in part of summer in New Zealand and all of winter in Europe instructing and skiing with my wife, and bring my daughter with us, and I'd be a full-time ski instructor if it was unlimited resources and no boundaries or limitations.
What book are you reading? Listening to podcasts. What would you recommend to our audience on that front that you think is worthwhile?
Yeah, I'm not a big reader. Candidly, I'm a big audio book person. The biggest change in my or the biggest kind of tip I would say is think about audiobooks and Audible, but think about it on a 1.5 times to 2 times basis. I crush episodes of podcasts on 2 times because I find there's a lot of great information in there, but I don't need the amount of time that it takes to listen to it at normal speed. And I find that that's a great way to really get through a lot of material and to fuel the, creativity.
That's why we try and keep our podcast down to 30 minutes. There's others go on for an hour. It's like, nobody listens to the end of that,
Right. With every conversation, there's only so many nuggets of gold you can pull from them too.
Right,
so
right.
I just find that that's a really effective tool. So that's kind of, podcasting while you're in the car, use your commute, as people like to unplug or unwind. And I get that. And I do at times too. I love country music. But I try with discipline to every time I'm in the car by myself, podcast on 2.5 times. So I'm getting industry perspective. There's a lot of great insurance industry podcasts. And then I'm a big fan of the Tony Robbins podcast. I think they provide a lot of great insights and content there. So that would be my one that if you haven't checked it out, that'd be worth checking out.
Oh yeah, I have to. Are you a morning or a night person?
I am a bit of both. I love a 6 a.m. consistent wake up. And I tend to, I love to unwind. I have a very strict routine at night. So I finish every day with a hot tub and a jump in my pool for as long as I can, as long as the season permits. So
Cool.
I really value the quiet time at the beginning of the day and the quiet time at the end of the day. And, it's just a nice contrast to the busyness of life.
And if you had to pick one word to describe Andrew, what would it be and why would you choose it?
Hardworking would be that one word. I think there's a hyphen in there, or maybe it's
that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, that I am not the smartest guy. I don't have it figured out, but I grind it out, and I am willing to put in the work to get us, to get to that next level or to get to that next place. And that's always been true. That's been, I haven't had a lot of things come easy, and it's been a lot of hard work, and I pride myself on that.
So last one, what's keeping you up at night?
Oh, yeah, I would say I'm going to take it from a Canadian perspective. I feel what I think about most and what bothers me most is I feel like the culture of work and that the culture of hard work and part of our Canadian identity has been fractured. And I feel like often that meritocracy or that, if you work hard, do the right thing, that you'll be rewarded. And that's what bothers me. That's what I see and experience out there. And that's something that I don't think was as real 20, 30, 40 years ago when I was growing up. And that keeps me up. I think about my daughter and I think about the world that she's walking into and what that looks like.
I get that.
Yeah.
Okay, last question. Great session. Thank you, Andrew. Where can our listeners or viewers find you online? If you've sparked something, sometimes people want to connect, basically.
Yeah, thanks for that, Phil. So I am very active on LinkedIn, and you can find me just Andrew Clark on LinkedIn. And then our website is alignedinsurance.com. We have a fantastic website for all sorts of business insurance products from everyone from startups to mature companies. And we've got an incredible team that would be happy to assist anybody.
Yeah. Andrew, once again, thanks for coming on Canada's podcast. Great conversation.
Thanks so much, Phil. Appreciate it.
What a great session. I really enjoyed that. Once again, I'm Phil Bliss, and don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter on our website and subscribe on our YouTube channel as well, and on any of the major podcast channels. Once again, thank you for listening to Canada's podcast, where you meet the entrepreneurs that drive Canada's economy. See you soon.